Hey, hello and welcome to the June report for 2017, and I've subtitled this one How Not to Bookbind, because I've been watching a lot of C Lemon tutorials, and she does mostly bookbinding really, and I thought I could do it without really thinking about it too much, so I tried. So this is my attempt at bookbinding, which, as you'll see later on, didn't come out at all as I intended. So, May has been an interesting month for the country in general. I had to remove a number of people from my life because they were so racist. I don't know how I hadn't noticed it before, but they were so unpleasant about the events in Manchester that I couldn't continue to be friends with a person who thinks like that. So there's a number of people who have found themselves deleted from all of my social media and everything, because I'm not a racist. I treat everyone equally, and I do not blame any Muslims for what happened in Manchester. It wasn't a Muslim problem, it was an idiot problem. And that is something completely different. Every religion has their extremists, and to blame all of Islam for a small number of idiots is just not fair, because you could quite easily do that with Christianity. And if you go through the Bible and selectively pick out whatever verses you want, you can pretty much excuse any activity if you just take the verses out of context. And that's what these extremists do. So they say it is justified by the Quran, but it's not, because they're not reading the whole passage, which just aggravates me something terrible. And when I became a Christian, I decided to read the Bible from cover to cover, and basically that the Old Testament is history. It's not important. It's the New Testament that is important, and the point of Christ dying on the cross was to be the final sacrifice anyway. No more goats in the temple kind of thing. And basically his death took on every sin, because there are so many sins listed in the first 4 books of the Bible. There are so many. You know, wearing clothes with 2 different fabrics, all that kind of thing was considered a sin. Now, come on, this day and age doesn't make sense. The only commandments that Christ brought were love God and love each other, nothing else. Anything beyond that is wrong. So any of these Christian preachers that say homosexuality is wrong, Christ didn't say that. Christ never said that. That was said back in Leviticus, which has been superseded by Christ. But anyway, I'm a Christian, yes, but I don't preach. At least I try not to preach. So, moving on. So after the real nastiness of the last couple of weeks, some good news. I'm actually recording this a week ahead, because in all likelihood, by this point I'm probably steaming out the ears, because on the 1st of June I need to hand in my last assignment for my degree. So doing a little bit of advanced prep to get this done, so I can just upload it and it's gone, so I don't need to worry about it. So I do expect that Thursday the 1st I will be not on this planet, as it were. So yeah, everything done in advance. So talking about the project you see before you, this wonderful, or maybe not so wonderful, hand-bound book. I had the idea to use some wrapping paper, which has got kind of 2-toned effect, or some brown paper, just for colour really. And it was a good idea, but it was not really the type of paper you need to bookbind with. Not ideal at all. So I don't know how well that's going to stand up to actual use, but it looks pretty. And when it came to actually binding it onto the spine, I decided to use a leather spine and do that completely separate from the covers, which made everything a little bit more difficult. So I sewed through the leather to bind it together, and I made the gaps really quite big, which has caused the whole book to have a bit of a one-sided feel to it, which isn't great. But again, it's my first attempt, so I'm fairly happy with that. So, yeah. So I'll come back to that later on. So for June, the things coming up in June, depending on how much I can get done during the stressy period, which is coming up, I'm intending to have a month-long project or month-long interconnected kind of series of projects. So I want to end up with a big kind of writing box. So a big fancy box that's got a number. I've got a diary and a journal and a notepad in it and all that kind of thing. So that's what everything's going to be related to this week. So for Scroll Saw, on the 7th, I'm doing the actual covers for the books, and I'm using kind of an Ivy image layered ply using veneer to make the covers for that. And depending on how much I get done before the 7th, I may do the actual bookbinding with that as well, but that may come later. For Dragon Food, obviously I can't do. There's no way I can fit in food to this. So I'm actually going back to some test recipes I did in March, which were for a special order. So test recipes of chocolate. So I've got 3 more variations on chocolates that I'm going to put out. And for 3 Minute Skill in June the 21st is pressing leaves, which sounds completely random and ridiculous, but it makes sense in the project. And then for the actual monthly project on the 28th is going to be the whole shebang, the whole box, using a similar technique to what I did for my CD box, which I should have put up yesterday. So that's the plan. So as you can see, this first attempt at bookbinding is a bit of a mess. It doesn't sit flat at all, and this paper just kind of resisted any attempts to trim it to an appropriate size. Again, I think it was the choice of paper really that did it for me, but oh well, it's a usable kind of sketch and doodle kind of book, although it kind of looks a bit weird. It doesn't sit flat at all, but you know, it's my first attempt at bookbinding, and I have since done a bit more research, and I've actually watched a couple more Sea Lemon videos, and I've learnt what's called Coptic stitch, which is a manner of stitching together your pages. So that technique seems to be working quite well for me. So now I've got to sort out the cover for this, which is going to be my new sketch pad, because I've killed another sketch pad, so this is my new one. So yeah, that is pretty much it for the June report, and I'll see you next week.